I think we should
As the
start
world-
because we're 20
Sure,
minutes in.
yeah,
I
it's
think we
been-
should.
Yeah. I think the gremlins
Apart
are all
from
out
making
for the
it a-
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we should give something for Wouter to.
Oh.
Oh, let's
Close
get started. So I think I lost the, what do you call? I mean, it's been so long because we took a long sabbatical. Given that.
What's
The
what?
world is-
I'm looking forward to what the reason is that you're going to give now.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know
I
what
was
it
about
is.
to say.
I don't know what it is, so I'm kind of like,
I
okay,
was-
in real time, invent something.
I was about to say, Clojure is a done language, so the podcast is done. That was my
podcast is-
intention almost.
Okay.
That's funny.
So the podcast is
one.
basically tracking the minds of rich and the like, the I don't know, the elders of Clojure. And then I thought, fuck, I think we're done, I guess. But then we keep finding new awesome people to talk to. So we had to
Nice.
come back. It's like, imagine that I was sitting in like Sylvester Stallone somewhere and there is a huge helicopter coming and then saying, we need you back. And
One last podcast before you
one last
retire.
podcast. So they
Oh my
had to
God.
coast me back in and then
Oh my gosh.
and Ray, and just imagine that, me sitting somewhere trying to
That's
code
hilarious.
in Clojure in a hut somewhere, and then there is a huge helicopter hovering around. You need to
Kira
come
needs
back
to
and
speak.
tell the people.
I have something to say. Wait. Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think we
That's
just got a bit complacent and lazy, and also given that the world is doing so good, so we were enjoying the fun.
It's just out living my sweet life.
Exactly, too
Yeah.
wrapped up in the beautiful life.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's time to every now and then come to the surface and breathe all the crap that is happening out there.
But another
Anyway.
way of looking at it,
Yeah.
VJ, is that like with global warming, the summer has went on for so long.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this
That's
is the end of our official summer break now.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's like
It's like 20 degrees Celsius. You guys, you're not. Neither of you are in America.
Yeah.
so
We're
Celsius
not
makes sense.
mental.
Heathens,
We use
Yeah,
proper. We're not barbarians.
Yeah, it's
There goes the entire U.S. audience.
There goes all the Americans just turned off the podcast.
God. Yeah.
I think they
That's
turned
fine.
off a long time ago with all the fucking and twatting.
Yeah,
So, you know.
It's true, yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's I was gonna say it's been like 20 degrees here today, which is like crazy, uncharacteristically warm
Yeah.
for this time of year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's-
Anyway, let's start on that happy note then. So it's still nice summer weather in Canada apparently. So,
We're getting this little bonus wave, yeah.
exactly.
the Indian
More
summer,
D-vitamin.
actually. That's and you're getting
Exactly.
an Indian
True.
podcast, so it's pretty good.
I don't think you will experience Indian summer. 40 degrees,
Oh, man.
mosquitoes everywhere.
I don't know if I could handle it.
Sorry, Indians. But
They're all turning
Anyway.
off now. We've built up such a good reputation with the diaspora, but it's like we're fucked again.
I think it's almost like a bingo card that we have like every country, every possible group of
It's
people
true,
that we can
yeah.
offend, and then we keep checking them. Like, oh, did we offend them? No, not yet. Okay,
Not yet.
we'll
Better
get
find a
to them, I
reason.
guess.
Actually, there has been some good news. We were talking a bit of politics beforehand, but like seeing the back of Bolsonaro has got to be good for everyone. So well done, the
Yes.
Brazilians. Fuck you, the
Yeah.
Brazilians who voted for him, but they can fuck off anyway. They're not listening to Clojure. I hope not.
I'm sure, yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
We
never
might be
know.
super popular in the right wingy,
That's
coding
true.
base, code bases.
New Bank is Brazilian, right? Is that
Yes,
Yeah, New Bank
yes.
is Brazilian,
So-
but they're all Clojurians,
Yeah.
so that's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I bet there's a sizable Clojure Brazilian cohort.
I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, let's do a proper
Oh yeah,
introduction.
okay.
So welcome,
Sure, yeah.
welcome back to DefN. I know. I think lots of people are missing us. At least two of you. So welcome back. So we are back with all the way from Canada. Kira on the podcast that have been, I don't know, people already noticed and then know already who it is because we usually put the name in the title of the podcast, so it's not that secret anymore.
Right,
that you're on this show. So welcome to the show, Kira. Maybe it's a good time to introduce yourself and tell us, why are we here?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't actually know. All of a sudden, I seem to have stumbled into this world of Clojure developers. But no, thanks for having me. My name's Kira, I guess, as you mentioned. I write software for a living. I guess we connected a little while ago, but in the recent months, I've taken on a couple of projects in the data world of Clojure, the sort of I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but yeah, a couple projects related to trying to build some educational resources for people using using Clojure to work with data. So I am mostly a web developer and kind of stumbled into this whole world. I stumbled into Clojure in the first place. So I was doing the like Ruby, JavaScript, kind of more classic web developer thing for some years. And then just kind of happened to find this job with a team of UK-based developers building open data publishing tools for several agencies over there. The company was called Swirl and has recently been acquired by TPX Impact. But anyway, I've been contracting with them for several years now. And yeah, so mostly I do web development stuff in my day job, but we work with a lot of data and we help a lot of agencies kind of curate and publish their data. And so that's what kind of got me into that world.
With the Clojure, you learned, sorry. So what was the first touch point? I mean, is it something before you joined this company, or did you already know about Clojure? And
for Clojure? No, yeah. So I had never really worked with or even heard much about Clojure before I joined this team, but I tend to search for jobs based on like the team and the work, like the type of work more than the language, although that's probably changed. I don't know if I would go back to any other language besides Clojure now, but at the time, like before
Clojure
I had done
or
like Ruby.
death.
Yeah, Clojure, I'm quoting software. But yeah, before this job, I had learned like a new language for every job. So it was normal to me to just not really care about the stack and focus more on like what the company was doing basically and like what the kind of work was. And so, so I was like, whatever, I'll try it out. I'll see how Clojure goes. And we did like a couple months, like kind of trial run, like understanding on both sides. Like if this doesn't work out, if I hate Clojure, if I can't learn it, like they're free to let me go, or I was free to leave. So, it worked out.
But it's an interesting moral dilemma, though. If you say, okay, I'm only going to work in Clojure, and then you say, oh, please join our tobacco company.
That's true. Yeah.
Are you going to say, no, you guys should use C, C++, and Scala, and then just
Yeah, but remember, tobacco companies are also making these like breather machines now to help people with asthma.
Oh my gosh.
They're good. They're on the good side now.
They're in the healthcare biz now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I would. I don't know. I don't like to think about getting another job. Like this is the first job I've ever had that's like, I don't want to disparage like my previous jobs, but yeah, I was going to say good. Like this is the first team I've worked with where I don't want to like just constantly quit all the time because I hate it so much. Like there are good days and bad days, obviously, but like for the most part, I definitely am secretly hoping this is like my last job I need to have in software, and after I'll figure something else out. I don't know.
But you look like you're about 15, Kira. So it's like,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm a few years away from retirement, as you yeah. So I'm not too sure what the plan is, but
so Clojure makes you retire either super rich or like disillusioned about software and then just quit it. Either way, you're gonna retire early if you use Clojure.
From software, anyway. Yeah, I don't know how many more years of software development I have in me, but that's part of why I'm excited about this. Like, so one of the project I mentioned is this like Clojure Data Cookbook. So like, in some ways, I see this as like I'm trying to like wrap up my time in software. I want to like sort of like get everything out of my brain, like make some resources, like try to publish some helpful guides, and then like
Wait, I thought this episode was people coming to me and then bringing back into Clojure. I didn't know that this is turning into like we are going to Kira and then telling her like, no, there is one more job that you need to do.
Yeah. You got to do this pretty quick. No, I'm definitely several years away from retiring. Like I'm it's not a realistic thing, but I just I find the industry in general pretty like depressing. Like and like you can find your people, like you can always find
Yeah.
the small teams and the right kinds of people to work with, but like just the idea of working for like the big tech companies is totally uninteresting to me. And I know there's lots of other people who have needs, like, who would hire a software developer. I mean, that's how I built my whole career, working with small teams. But the problem is small teams always become big teams. So far, every job I've had, I started on a team with like 2 or 3 or maybe 10 people. And then inevitably, over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 years, they either get acquired by a big company and you become part of a 1,000-person engineering team, or they want to blitz scale. And so they take VC money, which just invariably destroys the company. And it's like, I've never been in a job longer than, I say, 3 years before something like that happened. Like they either basically you get acquired. If you take VC money, you've been acquired by them, right? And then the whole purpose of the company becomes generating revenue for the VC, which just sucks. Like it,
or eyeballs or whatever.
Exactly. So
but you say you're working for like government agencies now. I mean, there's a whole sector of the economy, government, charities, NGOs, all these kind of things, and all of these, software is everywhere now. So I'm a lot of these people, it's not just like banks, tobacco companies, and the military that need it. Thank fuck.
No, for sure. And that's very true. Like that's the thing. I do think like I find some of the work that we do with Swirl or I guess TPX now, like pretty interesting. And that's the thing. It's, maybe it's not as glamorous as like saving the world or whatever, but I'm pretty confident it's not like actively destroying society. Like,
I mean, if you squint long enough, like the Silicon Valley, series, like everybody is saving the world,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. I used to work
for every company
with American companies, and I just like honestly couldn't handle it anymore. This like the Silicon Valley, like, oh, we're saving the world with our Airbnb ripoff, or like our it's Uber for cats. Like it's just absurd. Like
I thought for a second there you actually had a handle on a company that really was saving the world, and it was like, who are these people? Maybe we could find them,
You're right. Yeah. No, I've tried. I've definitely, like, I would say from pretty early on, like tried to at least, I've made what I at least count as an attempt to like, seek out those kinds of companies, like ones that are doing work for nonprofits or like, or are a nonprofit themselves, or, basically like all companies that have this impact stuff on their radar. And honestly, like it's better than nothing. Like even the companies that I guess the problem is like, it just makes me even more disillusioned, because once you see how the sausage is made a little bit, you're like, oh boy, like I don't think we're doing as much good as we say we're doing, right? And then it kind of like the impact thing becomes just a way to get more VC dollars, or just another marketing thing. And it's like, well, that's not why I'm doing it. Like ultimately the problem is like, the thing I hate about software is like most of the jobs, like at the end of the day, the purpose of your job is to just make some rich guy richer. Like you're not actually like really doing anything. And almost all of the fruits of your labors are just like, don't get me wrong, like software engineers are paid very well. And I'm not like, I don't think like I'm like unfairly compensated or something. And I think this is arguably different in my current role, but like working for, like when I was working for American startups, it's just like, what is the point of my life? Like my all I do all day is like write code so that this rich asshole can get even richer. Like I don't care about that. Like that's
So you were you were funded by Peter Thiel, were you?
not him specifically, although I interviewed at a couple of companies, and like they say that as if it's like a good thing.
Oh
like,
my god,
we're funded by Peter Thiel's VC, and it's like, wow, I'm out.
Okay, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm so out. I could not be more out.
I would rather work for a tobacco company. Moving on.
I really would, honestly.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, that's the thing. I know it's complicated, and I know there's like companies can do good things with dirty money or whatever, but it's just like, yeah, I don't know. But American work culture really sucks too. Like it's just awkward working with people who like never take vacation and work long
Oh
hours
yeah,
and
Right,
yeah,
think it's
right.
normal. Like
Yeah.
I think I probably can only ever work with Europeans. Like it's kind
yeah.
of, yeah, this UK based team has like really spoiled me. Like
What about
people
the
just disappear for.
Canadians? Are the Canadians a bit more relaxed in that, they take their 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks holidays?
I would say so. It's hard to say. So my most of my experience when I was working in offices was in Montreal, in
Hmm.
Quebec, which is like for sure the most like culturally similar place to Europe. So it's a little bit more of like a French kind of culture. So yeah, it was
Right,
pretty
right.
normal to like
Yeah.
stroll into the office at 10 or 11 in the morning and like
Long lunch.
take a take a nice long lunch, like take 2 weeks vacation and actually just totally ignore your work stuff and not be
Mm.
on Slack the whole time and like uh yeah.
What I like
But
about
I think it varies.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I like about like like that seems to be like a normal life to me. Doesn't seem like a
Right?
luxurious life.
Yes.
That seems like fine. What I like
Yeah.
about this, like, there's this thing called quiet quitting, which we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah, that's,
well, what does it
I
mean?
heard
But
about
it
this.
just means that
It's
you're doing 9 to 5, and you're like taking
yeah, there's
holidays and you're not working at the weekends. And I'm like, no, that's
wait,
not quiet quitting. That is actually doing your job.
isn't that just yeah, isn't that just working?
That's
Like
just working. Yeah.
I know, I
Oh,
know. That's the
Jesus,
thing.
yeah.
This expectations have gotten out of line for sure. Like, and that's the problem is that like, I think maybe there was an era like 50 years ago where if you like were an early contributor to a startup and you got like options or whatever,
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
might actually pay off for you. But like there was a good article recently. Well, I say recently, it was probably like last year or something. Anyway, going
mm.
around about, just like how basically like how shitty options are now. Like you won't ever actually make money. That's the thing. Like if you do the like slaving away for a startup thing, you will never personally see the benefits. You may make the founders rich, but you'll never get
Yeah.
rich yourself. And it's like, but I don't know, we still glorify that. I think like less and less so, I think. And I think the tech industry is like we're lucky that there's, obviously a lot of like really wealthy, privileged people who like
Mm.
have the bandwidth to like and the platforms to speak out against it. But like in general, the
I think
some corners of
on
the
that front, I
industry.
think the if I mean the only one thing I guess I learned something. Like one thing that I learned from MBA is that cash today is worth way more than cash tomorrow.
Right,
That's the
right.
only thing that I learned. And every time if somebody is telling me that, oh, there is a new opportunity, they're gonna give you like 15% of the company, I said, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
give me
no.
more money now.
And
I'm not gonna
options.
wait for 15 years
Yeah.
and then
Exactly.
whatever that turns into inflation and everything, and then I get that this is I can already calculate in my stupid Excel sheet because of my MBA knowledge.
Yeah.
Like this is completely useless in 2 years. So no,
Yeah, no, exactly. And
it's
then
gonna
yeah,
depreciate like hell. So what is the point? So
well, that's the thing. And then by the time they
yeah.
take like 17 more rounds of funding and dilute the shares so much
Yeah,
anyway, you get
exactly. And
nothing.
then
And so it's like,
it's worth nothing.
yeah, but
Anyway,
they sell it like, oh, we'll pay you 20% less. But
yeah,
if we
yeah,
ever become $1 billion company, which,
yeah.
one
I
in
mean,
a
I
thousand
usually tell
do,
them that give me that money. I'm gonna go to the casino
just give
right
me the
now.
money.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Well, that's the
I'll
thing.
just straight go to
It's
the
a lottery
casino and then I
ticket.
check my luck.
Yeah.
I don't need
That
to wait for
was
20 years to see whether this gamble is gonna pay off. I can just check it today, and then I know
yeah,
that I'm not that
exactly.
lucky. So
But I also think
Exactly.
it sort of refers to another cultural like trope, if you like, which is this,
Mm.
if you work hard, you will
Yeah.
succeed. And I think that is so
Yeah.
dishonest. It's such a
That's a really
horrible,
good point.
horrible kind of trope. Is that you see like all the people,
Yeah.
like my parents worked really hard, and I see a lot
Yeah.
of people like nurses. You go into
Mhm.
hospital. Like my brother-in-law is a radiotherapist. And I know a lot of people who are doctors and stuff like this, and they work hard. They do work hard under a
Mhm.
lot of stress. And I think, holy shit, I'm writing software, coding up like functions and stuff.
It's
It's just not that hard by comparison. But okay,
yeah,
I can
not at
do it
all.
like intensely from like 6 in the morning till like 9 at night. So fair enough. I mean, I
Sure.
can't, but if I could, that would be working hard. But I also
Right.
feel like if you're like, what's really happening with that is that they're blaming victims You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not actually the one that's succeeding, it's not because of the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you didn't work hard enough. And yet you see people who are
Yeah.
like teachers, doctors, nurses,
Oh,
working
absolutely.
their tits off, and
Yeah.
they're not getting paid a lot of money. So it's not because
No,
they're not
yeah. I
working
mean,
hard that they don't succeed. It's because they're
absolutely.
being completely exploited.
I think that's a good point. And it's true. Like that's the thing. It's even worse outside software. And it just like you're right, it's a broader cultural problem is that we have this, yeah, this totally false like cultural narrative that like hard work pays off. But like you said, like it just objectively speaking doesn't. Like for the last 50 years, wages have been totally flat and the
Yeah,
cost of everything else has been going up. And like people are working more, not less than they
yeah,
used to
yeah.
and getting nowhere. Like I don't know anyone like in my generation like there it's very normal now in your 30s to have roommates and very few people own houses and
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like the future is just very different. It's just a very different world, right? It used to be like students and poor people live with roommates and now that's just the only way to survive. And it's like it's yeah, it's not just in the tech industry. And I mean, I don't know, yeah, in like there's lots of problem anyway. We don't have to get into all the like local details, but like they're like right now
This is
teachers in Ontario
hang on.
are on strike because like they're like the government refuses to pay them and like now everybody's blaming the teachers because they're like, oh, I can't believe you don't care about the kids. Like
Oh my
but
God.
like you said, like they're working so hard. I don't know, like I
Yeah.
cannot imagine putting in the amount of effort that teachers put in. They just are constantly working. And then to say that, you know, all of that, you just are
And
you're
but
yeah,
people,
you're a
but they
failure in life.
prey on the sort of vocational aspects of those jobs,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
it's a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, maybe we'll wrap up this kind of society's ills in a minute, but I want to end like what I feel like in the software industry, which is most like I would say it's like the nurses of the software industry are games developers
Mm,
because these people see games developers who've got this passion to make games but
right.
the studios ruthlessly exploit these people and make them work
Yeah.
crunch hours all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's. I mean, I see that, and
Yeah.
that really makes me despair about like the software industry because it's
Yeah.
not about
Absolutely. Well, I mean,
working
I think
hard. It's about having
that's
good ideas and having good organization and being
yeah.
humane.
Well, I think that's the awkward thing, right? Is like nobody wants to admit that like for our entire society to function, like our entire like our world that we've built depends on exploitation. Like it
Mm.
just breaks down if you refuse to like if you insist on like treating everybody fairly and ethically and paying everyone, like you'd have to make some pretty dramatic changes. Like our current systems just don't work without
But they're just organically grown, right? Like writing code in REPL. No, they're just
Oh, he's
just
brought it
made
back.
up,
He's brought it back.
It's true, yeah, yeah. Anyway, circling back,
because
yeah.
nobody is sitting there and then deciding, well, I'm going to design this with strict static typing, and then
Yeah, no,
now the
it's true.
society is going to be follow the static typing. Like, no, that's not
That's
how
very
things.
true. And that's
Everything is
yeah,
just like a muddy organic way of resolving things, and that's why we're
yeah,
always in the mediocre level of which is, I mean, we should praise mediocrity because
sure,
that's the big thing that we could achieve. But anyway,
right.
my point is that is Clojure more organically grown problematic thing that you got into from web development, or is
Oh,
it
he's brought it back. He's brought it right
We'll
back.
bring it.
Brought it
Let's
right back.
circling
Yeah.
back to Clojure. So yeah, I guess in terms of my
We just started
my journey
pulling
into
you out of the
Clojure.
nosedive of your career ending.
Yeah. So speaking of quitting software forever, yeah, no, I would say I more like
one
yeah, like
last job?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think this is becoming more of a therapy podcast than a sort of.
It's a
Yeah,
group
talk
therapy.
me off.
Yeah.
Talk me off the cliff.
Yeah.
Intervention.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you go back to Ruby.
Exactly. No, I definitely won't be going back to Ruby. But yeah, it's no, I definitely I love working with Clojure, but yeah, I think I kind of just lucked out. I kind of like stumbled into this job.
But I'm curious, given your so you said you were doing web development with I'm guessing Ruby front end tech and everything, and
Yeah.
then you find a team that you want to work with, and then you try to learn the new language. And I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest things that we keep hearing, this is something that I was ranting about at Clojure Days recently with one of the attendees there. Like, we don't have enough support for the beginners. We don't have enough influx into Clojure. So, how did you
Yeah.
feel about being a new person trying to learn this stuff?
Yeah, no, it's tough for sure. I was just really lucky because I had this team of really experienced developers, and I actually had the chance to go meet them face to face and sit down next
Mm,
to several of them. I spent like 3 weeks in Manchester,
mm,
in the office every day. This was like before COVID. Yeah, and I was just really, really lucky. Like, a couple of the people on that team have been writing Clojure since, like, the very, very early days, and they're just like, I would consider them total experts, and they were able to sit down and, like, show me how this language worked and, like, explain some things. So I
oh,
was really,
nice.
really lucky. It was But yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's a really tough language to learn, and I think that's a common complaint for a reason.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons. Part of it is, I think Clojure tends to attract like more seasoned developers who are
grumpy,
maybe,
grumpy old
yeah,
people.
I'm trying to be very like
Yeah.
diplomatic,
Don't
but
worry
yeah,
about
like
that. Yeah, fuck
No,
that.
no, no,
Yeah,
cranky,
cranky old
cranky
farts. Yeah,
old,
yeah.
yeah, like people are done, almost ready to quit programming, but are like, oh,
like
I'll
you.
give
Yeah,
this,
Like you.
yeah, exactly, I'll give this weird list,
cranky young people
Somehow
in no case.
niche
somehow
language,
it gotten
yeah.
into you as well. By sitting with them,
Yeah.
you're like, well, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah, well, you're right.
They're
The
right.
software industry is terrible. But
Yeah, but I
yeah,
think
no,
that
I
that
think
is
there,
this is the
so
reason why.
there's,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. It's Jinx. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, like, why would I need a framework? Because,
Hmm.
who cares? I'm not making new apps all the time. Or why would I need like beginner tutorials? I already know everything there is to know about functional programming. And it's like,
Yeah,
okay, but yeah, like, imagine if you weren't coming from this, like, starting Clojure with a background of like 20 years in Java or like 10 years of Ruby development experience. Like, imagine
Yeah.
if you were like really early in your career, a year or two in maybe, and wanting to pick up this language, and you just don't have all that extra context. You don't have all of the sort of like battle wounds, like, to just like inherently understand why the Clojure way is better. Like, sometimes it's hard to explain why, yeah, doing things with like immutable data structures or in like a more functional style is just makes better results, like leads to better programs that work more often and more reliably. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that like just has a couple examples, but like there's not a lot of uh priority, I guess, given to like simplifying things, because it's kind of like a dirty word in Clojure. Like, everything is like very small, very modular, very bespoke. Every Clojure web app is different because there's no standard like stack. They're all kind of
yeah,
custom and whatever. And that's
yeah.
like celebrated. That's like, yeah, that's the best thing about Clojure, is that there's no rails like to reverse engineer just to figure out how to add something. Like, I can just make my web app from this pile of libraries, which is really cool, and it works really well for very large apps. But
Yeah.
that does make it hard. Like, I do think there's also a place for like a getting started framework. Like, if you do just want to build Twitter in 20 minutes just to learn how it works, just to get a feel for this language and play around with it. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I do think that's an audience that's not exactly catered to right now. Although there are a lot of good resources, like the Clojure for Brave and True
Yeah,
book is really good, and I think that's really like a great resource for beginners. And there's a few other tutorials out there, but yeah, it's a little bit scattered for sure, and
yeah, yeah.
it's a little bit intimidating.
There is no
Yeah.
concentrated effort to make getting into Clojure easier. I mean, of course, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I can just sit here and then complain. That's basically, it's
Well,
still our
this is
podcast, so fuck it. We can do
sure. Yeah,
that.
it's my
So
podcast. I can say what I want. But
yeah, that's the whole
no,
point
but
of
this is
podcast.
something that, like, this is something I care about.
Yeah,
And this is part of what I'm trying to work on with this
yeah,
this project. So, and the community agrees, right? So like, I got funded by the Clojurists Together
yeah, yeah,
group or organization or whatever. So
yeah.
from this pitch, and the idea is like, this will be more focused on people getting into data science, but like,
Mm,
you could do, I think it would be cool, whatever, next year, like, if I can ever somehow find a way to support my lifestyle without working full time, like to do a similar thing for like Clojure in general. And yeah, like write these resources and put together these examples of how to do basic things, like how to get started. But I think this is kind of a,
You need to give us the complete picture, like what is the project about and what you're doing. So
sure, yeah. So the project is, there's very similar books for other languages. So basically right now, like most people who do data science would use R or Python or both,
Yeah.
and maybe like a scattering of other kind of miscellaneous tools. But there's a lot of what you would need to do for sort of common data science stuff is possible in Clojure. It's just not like mainstream by any stretch, and it's not. I don't want to say not well documented, because most of the libraries do have really excellent documentation, but it's not necessarily like put together in one place. Like there's no like you said, like concerted effort to like kind of combine it all into one coherent, like here's how you do this in Clojure. Here's how you like, run this kind of analysis, or here's how you build this kind of graph. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is to just like put together all of the like a collection of examples, like a kind of a cookbook style. Like you want to run like this kind of regression, you want to write this kind of like visualization, or you want to publish this kind of artifact, or you need to work with this kind of data, and just like have these like example based like little tutorial snippets that people can use to get started. But I think, some of it, this is kind of like a magical time, because I think part of the reason this stuff hasn't existed before is that like some of the tooling wasn't there. Like a lot of the tools in a lot of these libraries are just really new. Like within the last year or two have come out. So like in data science specifically, there's a lot of work has gone into Clerk, which is this library for making it's library tool. I don't know exactly what to call it. It's more like a tool. It's kind of like makes like Jupyter notebooks, but for Clojure, and a ton of work too. Like I think another, and I'm just rambling about like all this Clojure stuff. But anyway, I guess that's the point.
It's the point.
Like, I think
Carry on, yeah.
It's literally the point of this whole conversation. So
exactly.
Here we go. Yes. Brace yourselves. Yeah. The like the editor situation in Clojure is tricky. Like I think one of the scariest things for me.
I don't think it's tricky. We all know there is only one editor. It's just,
there's the one.
Use Emacs and then move on.
That was my experience when I first started learning Clojure. Like this team, my friend who works at the company was like, yeah, so there at the time there was like IntelliJ with Cursive, and which costs money, I guess, or like there is a free license for hobbies, but or Emacs, and then they were like, yeah, well all the real developers use Emacs. So like,
real developers.
You should learn that.
Fucking bullshit phrase.
I was like,
yeah, definitely.
And then no. So but then that's the thing. So I was like, oh yeah, cool. I'll try to like learn some Clojure before I like, really interview with this company, or like definitely before I accept a job, because it would be cool to know if I even like this language. But then like, I just got really like, I spent like the first several, hours and days trying to figure out how to use Emacs. And I was like, this isn't going to work. Like I cannot do this. And then, that's when I started out. Now I do use like SpaceMax or whatever, but for a long time.
Hey, see, I don't need to ask you the question Emacs or some other shit. We already have an answer. So that's
great. The frustrating thing was like I had spent years getting really good at Vim, because like a lot of Ruby people, they're the same way about Vim, the way that Clojure people are about Emacs. They're like, oh yeah, like if you're like serious about programming and you're actually doing this like for real, you would learn Vim, and you would learn how to do it really well.
You would agree that, if you follow Eastern mysticism and shit, like, if you want to achieve nirvana, there is years and years of toiling your way. Yeah, exactly. That is the path to enlightenment. And then, that makes sense,
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. It's all for all for good.
Don't agree with him,
so
Kira.
I was like,
Kira, do not agree with him. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, are you kidding me?
I was thinking
this is like Emacs propaganda coming out here. We've got to stop the narrative,
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
aren't you following me on Truth Social, where I keep spreading the word of Emacs? That's what I'm
just trying to spread the good news.
It is the truth.
The life, the truth, and the way.
At
Yeah.
Donald,
But yeah,
at Donald, are you using Emacs or some other shit?
some other fake editing.
I think he has,
Well,
he has
the best people all use Emacs.
no, he has two tiny hands to able to use Emacs.
Oh, no.
He can't reach fucking control and something else with his tiny hands. So
Oh my gosh.
no, he might be a Vim guy.
Okay, sorry,
people.
Kira.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh,
let's go
that's
back.
hilarious.
Go ahead.
But oh man, anyway. But yeah, no, that was very frustrating because I was like, I just spent 5 years like finally wrapping my head around Vim, and now you're telling me I can't use that for Clojure, which of course you can. But anyway, all this to say, the whole editor situation is very intimidating, and like in pretty recent years, like the last year or two, Calva, which is the Clojure extension for VS Code, has become really, really good, and I think it's a really like realistic, thing. You can do all of your coding in VS Code with Calva for Clojure because it has like the full REPL support and stuff. So I don't just because like it sort of got popular a little bit after I had already kind of like invested some time learning other tools. But yeah, like it's a much more approachable way to get started, I think, for people, and it's pretty exciting. And even sorry, go ahead.
So in the data space, because the Python is the big
the 500-pound gorilla
in Python anyway. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy that a Python is a gorilla, but okay, fine.
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
Go.
Python is the 500-pound anaconda or whatever, the big snake.
It's a Python is a big snake, but okay.
Constricting everyone.
It's already big.
I don't know.
Redundant.
I was just remembering the anaconda movie or whatever, like the constricting people with Pythoniness everywhere. Yeah, exactly. Wraps around. But if you see in terms of the data, it's such a vast thing, right? Because I still do some data related things. I contribute to open source Python tooling, so it's not
Wow,
so
traitor.
I write Python
Dirty
a lot of
secret.
I write a lot of Python and Clojure as well. And then but my question is, like, if you see the data field, there is libraries, there is distributed computing stuff like Spark and Dask and all that stuff, and then there is visualization tools and there is machine learning related things. So how do you see the comparison? Because in Clojure we have access to some of them via JVM. But is there something specific that you see, this is really unique to Clojure, and this is something that we still need to improve in that space?
So that's a common question. Like basically, like why would I use Clojure for data stuff when there's already Python and ROI? Like so basically, like I do think interoping with the existing ecosystems is kind of critical and like necessary, because obviously like a lot of algorithms and a lot of models and whatever things already exist in, like, say Python, for example. Like Python is pretty dominant in like machine learning specifically, or NLP or other areas like that. And so nobody's going to be rewriting those libraries anytime soon. And so you have to be able to just use them. And so there are a few different ways to use the Python libraries from Clojure. And so that's like one part of it. But there are, like, I do think it's still worth asking, like, why would I use Clojure then? And this is something I've asked a lot of people, like the people who do use Clojure for their actual data science work. So like, I wouldn't call myself a data scientist. Most of my day-to-day work is still like writing software and writing sort of web apps. And so, I ask people, like, why do you use Clojure actually? Like, why, like, how did you find this community? So like one answer I've heard a couple times is the like basically data log and related stuff. So like being able to use that style of database, like whether it's Data 11 or Datatomic or the like, I forget, there's like it's kind of a document one, a database one, like kind of equivalent to SQLite or Postgres or whatever. And that style of working with and persisting data is pretty unique to Clojure. So apparently there's not, and this, I'm not like an expert and haven't done a comprehensive survey or whatever, but people seem to agree that there's not a great ecosystem for working with data in that way, sort of like all the data script stuff, that style of querying and storing information in other languages. So that's one. And then I think another big one is just basically the JVM and like the speed and performance of Clojure. So there's some tasks that you might run that you'd like have to run it overnight if you're doing a Python script, but you might be able to do it in 5 minutes on a JVM. And so there's different tools are good for different things. And there's some tasks that people want to just like kind of crunch through a whole bunch of information. And with Clojure, obviously you have access to all these like really advanced. So like for all the shit people give Java and the JVM, like, and it is annoying in a lot of ways, but it is like a really state of the art, like computational environment. And it's really, really, really like mature and fine-tuned and performant. And so you get all these benefits of that just for free, I guess, just like by nature of Clojure being a hosted language on the JVM. So I think those are the two main ones. But then the other, there are other like ancillary or more like less concrete tech reasons to work with Clojure. I think the community is really welcoming. It's like an exciting space. You have some opportunities to get involved. Yeah, you get to like hang out with all these cool people. So
I was wondering about like, what about the FFI stuff to see, like all the stuff that the people have done to make it easier to call in to compute things in C and columnar stores that you can do in memory. That kind of like make performance of Clojure code, the expressive. You can still use the expressiveness of Clojure in the kind of like higher level software, but then you can drop down into these like C style data queries. That
really
seems
cool.
pretty good.
Yeah, I have not worked with those, but I'm not surprised because there are libraries. So the ones I've sort of seen and experimented with are ones that let you interop with Python and R. It's like, I think it's called libpython, Clojure libpython or something, and Clojis are or something like this. But anyway, but that's
Clojure.
cool. Like, I'm not surprised though. Something like that. Like, but so I'm not surprised that people have come up with a way to also call C code or whatever. But that's the thing. Like, Clojure is just a very, very versatile and like practical language. It's very pragmatic and it's designed just inherently like in the language itself. So stuff like that is possible because it's quite extensible and it's quite flexible. And I think, and it's stable also, which is a huge, I guess, that's another big one. It's hard to explain to people who are used to things like breaking all the time why
changing
it's so cool. But Clojure is, and I don't want to say unique because I know as soon as I say it, people will be like, oh, what about Elixir or whatever. But in general, Clojure, especially if you're comparing it to most other web technologies, which is, I guess, my background, like it's unbelievably stable. Like most things in Clojure that you write, like that people wrote 5, even maybe up to 10 years ago, I wouldn't be surprised. But definitely, like there's code that I've been working on for 3 years that has, like, we've hardly updated the dependencies. And then when we do, it just still works. Like everything works. Updating the dependencies is just bumping a few numbers and then running it. And like, they don't just break stuff every 2 months for the sake of changing it. It's like, there's this respect for things that already exist.
But this is something that I think, in my opinion, I mean, after working in Scala, Spark on large machine learning projects, and then writing a lot of Python code as well and Clojure, what people don't realize is that maybe it's kind of like a what do you call that, like the Stockholm syndrome or something. Like you get used to this shit so much and you start loving the whole crap. Like I released like one version of the Python tool that I was working on, and I changed 0 things, like absolutely 0. And then after 6 months, someone tells me everything is broken because 4 layers deep, somebody decided to yank some dependency, change something, and then everything is gone. I said, like, this is not even my code. There's like nothing.
I know.
It's not even my direct dependencies. It's crazy.
And people just get used to it, like you said, and you just work it into your process. Like one of the jobs I had, we were building a really sort of complex, like basically like a web-based kind of image editing thing. And so it was like massive TypeScript code base. And it was normal. Every quarter, we would set aside basically a week, like a week's worth of effort at least. Maybe it was 3 people for 2 days or 1 person for 4 whole days to upgrade the dependencies. It took a full week.
Yeah.
Like every quarter, it was just part of that quarter's plan was like, okay, we're going to have to bump all the dependencies, and then we're going to have to test everything. And then we're going to have to resolve all of these new type errors that come because we had to upgrade TypeScript. And then we're going to have to make those somehow work with all these other libraries that are out of sync now. And the Angular, it was with Angular, and the ecosystem is crazy. Like there's this like 7 dependencies that go with, they're all essential for Angular, but they only work in this like magic combination of versions. And it's like, there are like, with 6 things, there are however many from, like, I can't remember from my grade 9 math class, but like millions of possible combinations, right? Like
exactly
of possible combinations of versions when you have, and it's
you
just
should use some data science to map
absurd. It out. Yeah, it's true. I can visualize.
It should be the cookbook.
Visualize how long it would take you.
It's part of the cookbook. Should be harshing on the Python and TypeScript dependency systems.
That would be hilarious.
Hey, we don't have features. We solve problems.
I'm totally going to do that for some of the examples, like the frequency at which libraries are just pulled with no notice from NPM.
I think it should be that one, and that'll be super cool. Like every tool that you are documenting, or you're making beginners to access, you should just use one of these quote unquote use cases to shit on other ecosystems and languages in a very passive aggressive way. Like,
passive aggressive is the Clojure way. So
That is true. I will give you that. Yeah. If there's anything I've learned.
I say very passively aggressive.
Yeah.
Mentioning no names.
So we need to flip away from being passive aggressive and then become more actively aggressive.
Well, we're trying in this podcast to really, be upfront and, aggressive.
Yeah.
But,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think our podcast is the only voice of reason in the Clojure community. Is that active aggressive enough? No, I think we should even bump it up even.
I think so. Every other podcast is a bunch of fucking shit. Yeah. So,
there you go. I said it. There.
Actually, I don't believe that. I quite like a lot of the other podcasts.
No, absolutely.
I was going to edit that bit out.
Actually, I mean, to be fair, I mean, to be honest, I mean, one of the reasons why we are kind of slacking is also because we see so much of new, beautiful podcasts coming in Clojure, right? I mean,
come on, don't backpedal too
folks
much.
And no, I'm not backpedaling. I'm being genuine for once.
Oh, okay.
Usually not, but that is a nice part with Yashak and a couple of other folks doing a lot of Clojure work, and we're like, hey, there is no point.
I do feel like it's an exciting time, in the Clojure community. But also, you say slacking, but also that's another, like, that goes back to our whole like societal ills. Like it's also fine to take a couple months off. Like not being productive for a consecutive 2 weeks at a time is actually fine.
Oh, like, that's my entire career. Not being productive is my entire career. So I'm not just this.
That's my goal.
Not just this summer months.
But that's the thing, right? We have this mentality, like if you're not constantly producing output, if there's a week where you produce nothing, then you were slacking. You weren't, it's wasted. The time is gone and you wasted the time and you lost your chance. And it's like, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's actually fine. Like maybe it's normal for things to be like cyclical or seasonal, You can have a season of productivity and a season of rest, and that's okay.
We're more, I think, more random than seasonal. We're more
That's
in
also
terms of
fine.
the universe,
Right?
on the universe scale.
I think the mood takes you. When the mood takes you, you should do something, and when it doesn't, you don't.
Sure.
Exactly.
It's like the jazz podcast.
It's
I was going to work
really
in this little.
I
was going to work this little one in terms of like shitting on other languages. I was going to work in this thing about mentioned to you earlier about like I believe this, like one of the problems you've got with other languages, not the ones we've mentioned so far, but like these people who come up with the ethics about how it's terrible to have these untyped systems, is that I think the nice thing about things like Clojure and Python and JavaScript, for all their mess, maybe it's not Clojure's not as messy as those people, but there's those languages.
Sure.
But it tends to be
we
more
have better
kind
mess.
of we've got our own mess. It's just a different type.
Sure.
Exactly.
It's like it's a better mess. It's a better class of mess.
Yeah, no, it's right.
But
man.
these other, but like it's kind of like a bit of it's a jazz party. It's like there's definitely kind of like there's a freedom and liberty around it. As soon as you get into these languages like Haskell and Scala and stuff like that, or Camel, then you're kind of into like a dictatorship. And all the people that like to live under autocratic regimes love all of those kind of languages. And and I think that's the way to think about it. Yeah, I think so. I think if you're basically a follower, if you're a follower and you like to follow orders, and you like to have everything in order, and you're very kind of like make sure the door is closed when you leave the house and turn the gas off.
In the box.
Everything inside the lines. Yeah, color inside the lines all the time. Then I think these type systems are awesome for you. And if you'd love to go and do those type systems in like Hungary or Russia or places like this, where you can live the life of
There's so many Clojure programmers in Russia thinking, well,
actually,
I'm trying to piss everyone off now.
No, it's so funny. Well, to me, as soon as you say something, like, my mind obviously immediately goes to all these examples of like, now that you mention it, my friend who's, obsessed with Java is kind of an autocrat. Like, but I wonder if there's anyone who's ever done that. Like the intersection of like software engineering and psychology must be pretty small, but it would be interesting to see if people's language preferences have anything to do with their personalities. It totally like anecdotally it checks out to me.
It chimes, doesn't it? It kind of like it's one of those like anecdata type things,
That's very very scientific,
and I don't think it's a coincidence that like the Clojure developers I know are very very laid back, very cool, very like, don't take your life too seriously because it's just a job, like kind of people. And then the TypeScript team is like, let's go. Like, this is, you're doing it wrong. Like, there's actually no right way. This is all made up. This is all fake. Like,
yeah, exactly.
No, like, get over yourself. It's all made up.
It's an interesting there though, because when I started learning computer stuff and everything, which is way back in India, where we didn't have access to all this fancy stuff that people who are doing stuff in the US, the gods of computing sending us stuff from textbooks and everything. That's how I learned, right? I mean, all the names that I saw on the textbooks are like literally gods for me, like Andrew Tannenbaum.
All these American. Yeah, that's really interesting. Is that the dynamic there is a little bit more like...
because we are learning
computers
all this stuff.
Come from America.
No, not just America. It's just a Western world, because
because
you hear all these names and which are not common to us, and
interesting.
And when I started getting a bit more grown up, joining the jobs, and then I never thought like people who are into computing would be, how do you say that? Like thinking
normal,
participating in the conspiracy theories. Making shit all these weird ways, like like Facebook and all these things, because which is completely backward to me. Because when I was growing up, like this, like Larry Wall and all these people, you hear quote unquote here, which is basically via their code, via their mailing list and all that stuff. You see them completely differently, and then I grew older. Again, this is my personal perspective, obviously. I grew older, and then I see ESR doing weird shit, like Eric Raymond and Richard Stallman doing weird shit, saying weird things. Like, my brain couldn't comprehend, like, he's God. I mean, why is he doing this kind of,
right.
Gods cannot be bad. Yeah, why is he? Yeah, but because you cannot detach that one, right?
But God creates cancer in babies, so
yeah, but that's your God. Right. I'm from Hindu culture. We have one God for everything, cool. So we are okay with it.
Yeah,
exactly. We're pretty okay with it. Gods are not infallible in our culture.
Your God gives cancer to babies. Maybe.
They keep mistakes all the times.
Well, maybe think about it a different way. That like software is a new form of colonialization, and basically just getting shat on by the new colonialists. You think the colonialists are trying to do you good, trying to do you a favor by bringing you railways and computers. But in fact, they're just
they act
abusing
like
you.
they're doing you this big favor.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But-
and they're like,
But verifying this theory should be okay, right? If we can coerce the Stack Overflow developer survey, just add one more question there, like what is your language preference and what is your, I don't know, right, left leaning
Right.
images, whatever.
Yeah.
Then we're done. We have the numbers everywhere, so we can just
it's
see
true. Yeah.
if you are following Rust, that means you are extremely authoritative following kind of person. But at this rate, the entire North Korea must be static TypeScript people. Then they're all
Yeah, I
just
guess
TypeScript
they probably have
programmers.
their own languages. They probably have their whole
Yeah.
own languages.
No, I think they're very heavily typed, but I think they're craving for Clojure. I think it would be an absolute
Secretly,
it would be a Clojure
secretly
if you could get smuggle Clojure into North Korea, I reckon it would be an absolute coup.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
big
back
hit.
to
it could
back to
change
Clojure.
the world,
That's true. I mean, if they can get into Emacs, I think that's the biggest problem, I guess.
Oh my
If
gosh,
they can know how
figure
to
out
use
that,
Emacs.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's the first step.
back to the thing. So you mentioned a couple of.
I thought we were still talking
already,
about Clojure. Oh, the cookbook. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, this
So
is what you mean by the thing. Okay.
So you mentioned a couple of tools, and I was following, or at least on the side, the whole Clojure data science community run by Daniel and few of the folks like Chris
Yeah.
Nirenberger and all these people. So
Yeah.
So what are the tools that you're highlighting in your project? Like which categories and which specific tools?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. So there's some, I see Ray just shared a link to dtype next. So there's a few new-ish libraries. I say new as in like a couple years, basically.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't touch my microphone. Libraries that people
No, it's okay.
have come up with, and I don't know, it's interesting. Like it's sort of coincided with the pandemic, but some of them are sort of from like 2018, 2019. But I do think there is maybe like a little pandemic boom of like creativity and extra time that people had. But yeah, so there's some
we should have more of the pandemics.
Yeah, more lockdowns. Yeah, I'm sure that's everybody needs right now. Some libraries focused on sort of data manipulation and like working with data in really efficient ways. And so dtype next underlies a lot of those. And there's a library called Tablecloth, which is kind of built on top of that. Which is really nice for working with tabular data in Clojure, so like CSVs or whatever. And there's been huge amounts of development in the tooling area, like I mentioned. So Clerk is the solution to kind of like Jupyter notebooks, and then there's other ones called like Portal and Oz. All these libraries have like all these interesting made up names, but basically like there's several ways now, whereas just like a few years ago it was pretty hard. There wasn't like an obvious way to do that style of like literate programming where you have like your code and the results in line, which is like the overwhelmingly most common way people, like I think there's a Kaggle survey recently asking the data science community what tools they use, and like 3/4 of them or something use Jupyter notebooks, and so it's like the most common style of doing that. But and then there's also like I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's like in progress right now, it's kind of like imminently about to come out, is a kind of notebook integration for Calva for VS Code, so that people will be able to write their which is super exciting, because I think this is going to be like a big like help in teaching people data science for Clojure, or teaching people, I guess, however you look at it, like either Clojure developers who want to learn data science, or data scientists who want to start doing it in Clojure. Like VS Code is such an accessible entry point and such an easy editor to use that already has the REPL capabilities with Calva. And now they're going to add this kind of like literate programming like module or add-on or plugin or whatever it's called for notebooks in VS Code. So that's going to be really cool. And so we'll talk about some of that. And then I don't know, there's been a lot of work too. There's been some work in data visualization libraries for Clojure. to help. Most of them are built on top of Vega and Vega Lite. So Vega and Vega Lite are like data viz libraries, sort of grammar for graphics type approach. So very similar to like ggplot, which is the one a lot of people use in R.
But is there something that you're also looking into the work of Dragon, like all the CUDA libraries that he made, and I think he has a couple of books on the whole linear algebra and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So no, I haven't come across those specifically yet, but I'm sure probably we'll cover those as well. So yeah. So and then there's a whole bunch of libraries around the interop stuff too, like the Python and our sort of I don't know, helper interop libraries and stuff like that. So so there's
so how did you get into that, Kira, by the way? How did you get into it? I mean, we've kind of like glossed over it a little bit, but you're a web developer, but all this like stuff around, data science. I mean, do you have a background in this, like knowing about R and Python and stuff like this? Do you have a little bit of why did it take your fancy,
Sure. Yeah, no, mostly just kind of like personal interest. Like, I guess my kind of gateway into it was through data visualization. So I like blogging and like writing, and often was like wishing I could like incorporate these little graphs or have like interactive little like data viz things in my articles or whatever. And kind of started looking into some of that stuff. And last winter there was a call for people, like they were looking for people to run workshops at the Clojure conference, which happens every December. And I offered to do one about data visualization in Clojure, and that kind of just like exploded from there. So like that went pretty well. Yeah. So but basically the short answer is just like I guess we have a lot of data to work with in my job. So like I don't do the actual data analysis stuff with it, but it's just like there's just piles and piles of data, and the question is like what now? So like our job or our like kind of role in the process is like very early on. So like curating the data sets and cleaning them up and publishing them in a hopefully useful format. But then the question is like, okay, we have all this data. Like, what do you do with it? Like, what's the point of all of this work that goes into publishing and curating these public data sets? And it's like, and that's kind of, I guess, how I stumbled into this world of data science. Because kind of wondering like, what do people do with this, and what is this for? And
you're mining all of the gold, and you're wondering what people make of it.
Basically, yeah, exactly. And then combined with my own sort of just like personal interest in like cool data viz stuff, kind of stumbled into it. And then just like after that workshop, I kind of became more and more involved in this like Clojure community. So who mostly is organized by Daniel, as you mentioned. And kind of just one thing led to another, and it was actually him who suggested. So like I came up with this like I was like, I wish this thing existed, like this cookbook. Like I wish there was just an easy resource to go to figure out like how to do this, how to do that. And then Daniel was kind of like, well, you should you should pitch that to this Clojure Us Together round and see you could maybe like get funding to write it, which I thought was a very long shot, but it turned out it worked, and that's super exciting. So I'm
I think this is one of the areas that Clojure I think this is one of the areas that Clojure hasn't fully explored, right? I mean, we see a lot of backend work, obviously, like APIs and Clojure on JVM work, and we see a lot of the Clojure script plus React and all that reframe stuff, and just kind of like became the de facto for Clojure people. But then I think that's also probably, I would say, pulling people into Clojure was also like how easy it is to use ClojureScript plus React than actually doing React in JavaScript with reframe, for example. I think there is such a better way of writing the whole front end stuff. But the data science thing, I always felt like Clojure being the center of the data being in the front end center we
Mm-hmm.
never exploited that potential enough. Like that's something that I
Yeah.
always felt. But this is a really nice project that is contributing to helping people to pick it up. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I'm actually speaking at the Reclosure conference this year about
nice.
exactly
Okay.
that. So the topic of the conference, or the like theme or whatever, is like growing the Clojure community. And I totally agree. I think the sort of data science world is like one area where there's a lot more potential, at least a lot of room to grow. And like attract more people into the sort of like Clojure umbrella through that, because of exactly what you said. It's not very well known, and it's not very widespread. But part of that's just because it's pretty new. Like a lot of the tools that you would use are pretty new, and they're kind of just starting to stabilize a little bit. So like, as like any library or any project, things are always a little bit chaotic and unstable at first. So
but there has been like plenty of
yeah.
efforts, right? I mean, I remember a long time ago, there was
yeah.
Gorilla REPL, for example. That was
Right.
one of the first notebooky type thing. And then Maria what is
Maria
it?
Cloud.
No,
not
Maria
Maria.
Cloud, not DB, sorry. Yeah.
Right.
So there is plenty of efforts going, and then all of them are just, and Usenext Journal, of course. There is so much of innovation happening, but bringing them together and then making a coherent story out of it,
it's kind of,
that's something that is missing. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's kind of this magical time, because yes, like you said, there's all these kind of things that are like converging, and it's just being in the right place at the right time. So like, like VS Code is gaining popularity among data scientists already. And then also the Calva and the Calva notebook stuff is coming ready, and all these other tools are available, and the libraries are coming into place, and like the Python interop story is getting better and smoother. And so it's like kind of all coming together in a nice way. And it's just, I feel like it's a good time. It's good timing for Clojure to open up a little bit more. But
from a person who stumbled upon Clojure because of the team, and now what do you see like the points of improvement, or what is shit in Clojure from your point of view? I don't want to like
we've shut on everybody else now. Let's shut on Clojure.
Exactly. So it's time for some navel gazing and self introspection and shitting on ourselves.
I do think I think it's gotten a lot better in recent years, but I do think the beginner story could be better. So I do think there's
always,
just subjectively speaking, there's not as many beginner friendly resources for Clojure as there are for other languages, which maybe is fair, because like I get the argument. Like the thing people always say when I bring that up is like, well, but beginners don't use Clojure. And it's like, because there's no resources.
No, I think that's a horrible
I understand
argument,
that's the thing. Like I understand that Clojure, is well suited to like large scale, mature applications. But at the end of the day, like if you want it to grow as a language, you want more people to use it, you're gonna have to invite more people in. And so, I do think, and like I said, I don't want to disparage any of the existing stuff. There is a lot of like good stuff out there, and a lot of work has gone into like the Clojure for the Brave and True book, and like other podcasts. There are some like Lambda Island has some really good resources, and Eric Norman has some really good screencasts. So there's definitely stuff out there. It's just like a little bit scattered, and it's a little bit sporadic, I guess. And then the community, I think, has gotten a lot better, even in the 3 years that I've been around, or like I guess 3 or 4 years I've been working with Clojure. But like some of the older talks, like if you watch some older conference talks, you can kind of get this like little vibe of like, like Clojure is for experienced Java developers. Basically, Clojure is for cool people, and like noobs need not apply.
Stay away.
Like
it's a really weird thing, isn't it? I mean, I think it's weird to think that old Java developers are cool. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah, first of all, like back up, guys. I mean, that's the thing. So,
so I mean, in a way, I think the origin is based on that one, right? I mean, if you see the story of the history of Clojure, because we cannot rewrite the history, because it was built out of the frustration of writing large scale C++ code and
Exactly.
experimenting with
And
JVM and experimenting, all the pain led to this language. It's not like, oh, let me sit
yeah.
back and then imagine a new language. Like, no, it was never like that. So
No, that's the thing. And I do think that's one of Clojure's strong points, is that it is like, it's
yeah,
very obviously very deliberately designed to be
yeah,
like a functional, like not as in like imperative versus functional, but just like well
yeah, yeah,
functioning,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
smoothly run, well
yeah,
organized, pragmatic language. And I think Rich Hickey does
yeah,
deserve a lot of credit for doing that. But yeah, I do
yeah,
think like the impression it gives sometimes can be like a little disparaging to people who are maybe getting started, right? When it's like, oh, what kind
yeah.
of idiot would use such a shitty language like JavaScript? And it's like, well, what if JavaScript is the only language I know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Then like now I feel scared and intimidated to talk to this guy who's a fucking genius. Like,
Yeah.
so
But
it
I
can be
think
a
this
little
this is
intimidating, but
that's true. I think that is the kind of, I mean, personally, when I started with Clojure, luckily it was not that big. So even though idiot like me could get in this one, which was much easier back then, because there is not enough people telling me that. I mean,
yeah.
putting a mirror in
But
front of me and showing that I'm an idiot writing Java code. So it was much better. But I think this is the next phase, right? And this is the time I think Clojure should take VC money
yeah.
and then scale up. This is the time. And like,
We got both
enough
scale,
of
man.
hacking in, exactly, yeah, like scale it up. And but this is if this is causing, the mindset needs to change, because the context changed, the world changed, in the last 15 years when Clojure was built.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
we
And
need to
that's
adapt,
the
we
thing.
need to, like, yeah,
I do think the industry in general is shifting. Like definitely. So yeah, I've been programming for like, I don't know, 7, 8 years, I guess. And
mm,
like it definitely has become, I think, marginally less hostile and shitty. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know, maybe some of that's self-selection, because you just, you can pretty quickly like exclude yourself from groups that are like that. But like I
yeah,
think that like the very stereotypical like antisocial nerd,
yeah,
like
yeah,
like I guess like that's the thing, because like those guys typically are like the superstars in any community or whatever. But then like other people who aren't like them are around, but just like kind of were like scared or intimidated to speak up. But I think that's why like
yeah,
this podcast is so cool. And there's other like you said, I mentioned there's several other podcasts in the Clojure
yeah,
world, and there's some conferences that are focused on sort of community stuff more than like strict technical stuff. And I think
yeah,
it helps people realize that, yeah, like not all software engineers are actually just like, totally socially inept, like terrible, mean, cruel jerks. Like,
apart from me
like
and
there are
VJ,
like,
exactly.
we
yeah.
bring on
So
people that
still
aren't
from,
totally inept jerks.
like,
don't take
there
that away
are
from us.
Thank God
normal.
from that.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
how dare you
That's our
accuse me
brand,
of being a
Kira.
normal? Yeah, not a normie.
Exactly. But I think that there is, I
Yeah.
mean, because one of the things that I really admire the Rust community on that sense, like
Hmm.
the kind of working groups that they set up. And I mean, of course, every language has its own warts, right? I mean, it's impossible in building something that is going to be awesome for everybody, because the amount of things with the beginner experience. And one of the things that I love about Rust thing is that I can just type Rust doc and then book, and then there is a complete language book in front of me locally.
Yes, that is
This
awesome.
is
Yeah.
fucking amazing
Yes.
for people who are learning
Yeah.
languages.
Well,
Yeah.
And
and I think that's
especially for a guy who started without internet in my life, like reading through
right,
the man pages, when people are so
right,
much used to just googling and then picking up snippets from there. But there is something completely offline and well written, and then guides you through the
right,
language,
Yeah.
which is
right.
awesome.
Yeah.
That just one experience makes learning the
I think
language
like
so
from the
nice.
start, Rust has definitely had a focus on like a beginner friendly experience. Like I remember
Yeah,
like I wouldn't say I know Rust, I've never worked with it, but like
yeah,
everybody, like you're like, oh, this is an exciting new thing.
yeah,
Try it out. And yeah, from day one, they made a priority of like having really good documentation and like really friendly error messages, which I know is always like the number
exactly.
one complaint in Clojure, and
Yeah,
like really helpful other like supports and sort of guides to make it easy to get
Yeah.
started.
I think Rust is an interesting comparison actually, because it's a pain in the ass language. You know, I mean, it
Yeah,
really
it's a very
is.
complex language.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you know,
Compared to Clojure, it's a very complex language.
it's like a lot of it is
Yeah.
a lot of it is relatively straightforward if you know like C or like stuff like that. But you know, again, not that many people are kind of C experts. But even if you know C, and I was a C programmer back in the day, so I kind of recognize it. And if you know Go, you recognize Rust. But they have this obviously this borrow checker, which is the most problematic thing of Rust, and it's the thing that the compiler, the autocratic compiler, will keep its troops in line. But you know, it's got a lot of they've made a lot of promises about it, which they definitely can't keep. But you know, but they've definitely like without I mean shit on Rust a little bit, but but you know, I think what they've done well is they've said, okay, we'll have some resources to try and like deal with this complex. We know it's a complicated language, and we're gonna commit to making it accessible and give people a fighting chance. And I really think that that's something which the official group in Clojure could do more of. And they're obviously a bit better resourced than they were in the past, and I don't know why there's a sort of reluctance to hire some documentation people. That seems a bit silly, actually.
That's maybe
because
one,
there would be nothing wrong with having a documentation tool that was the equivalent of like
it's a skill, right? It's not something. I mean, I can't write. Sure. I can't write properly structured documentation because I cannot think like how the people who are reading it, because there is this framework. What is it? I forgot, Ataraxis or whatever. Like there is a different way you write frequently asked questions. There is a different way you write cookbooks. There is a different way you write reference guides.
Yes.
Like, I know what you're talking about. That.
Yeah. There is a framework, right, for the documentation. I was reading about it. Like, fuck, there is so much I don't know about, and I cannot be skilled at this. So I would rather find someone who is good at this stuff, and then they can construct this. Which is something that.
Yeah, I think that's probably another like. I don't know, difference or like weakness of the like there doesn't seem to be a lot of like what am I trying to say, like community efforts. It's like kind of all scattered. Like there's not like a strong like central organization, like not that like I don't want to make it sound like the Clojure core team like owes the community anything or is not doing enough. Obviously they do an immense amount of work, but like you said, like in other languages, there are like working groups, and it's a little. I guess it's more. It's very closed, right? It's very like. I think that's something that's very fair to say about Clojure. It's a closed core, and it's a very top-down dictatorship. I mean,
for all the autocracy, exactly. We are talking about like we are living through that one in Clojure.
It's like
Chinese in an autocracy here.
Yeah, it's the Chinese Communist Party, more like.
Of course, like
Rich has been elected to another 5 years.
Exactly.
Exactly. And of course, like Cognitect and Nubank and all of the other core team like are obviously very supportive of the community efforts and stuff, but there's no like connection back to the core. Like they're not interested in for whatever it is, whether it's lack of resources or lack of interest or lack of time. Like there's no like looping it back into the core of Clojure. It's like everyone is just on their own, and so you get you do get a lot of people like all these grassroots like courses
together
and
people like you doing all this work.
Clojurists together, but it's all and of course like they're there and they're funding it, but it's a very like hands-off, like it's not like a working group spawned from the core team. It's very much like a totally separate independent thing. Do whatever the hell you want, and like we don't care, and we're not gonna explicitly like endorse or
exactly.
But I think it's fair enough for like 80% of the stuff that it's a Lisp. People can do what they want, and I think that's fine. All the libraries and stuff like that. But I think the documentation is something else. I think, and again, it's not a matter of owing someone something, but if you're if I was Nubank. And I bought this company they bought it for Datomic probably more than anything else. But still, Datomic usually exists well with Clojure. They've got a lot of Clojure people. So why aren't they spending a little bit of time, like you say, because it serves their own purposes. It's enlightened self-interest, making like beginner experience onboarding documents, making a language more accessible to their own developers even, and then publicizing that because
Right.
it can't exactly be a competitive bloody advantage, so it's like, so things like that to me are kind of like, it's not a matter of owing someone something, but being like pragmatic about wanting to keep the language growing so that you as a business can actually keep recruiting people,
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, it's true. It's not right. It's not in the sense of like, oh yeah, why aren't they doing this or doing that or doing more? It's just like you said, like, there's people always talking about, oh, how do we grow Clojure? And Clojure's, they want more people to use Clojure, but it's, yeah, like at a certain point, you're going to run out of jaded Java developers to draw on, and you're going to need to like start training new people.
You can only pedal the dope for so many people. At some point, you're going to reach the maximum, and you're like, okay, well, we got these people done. I think that the whole demographic of
but I also think,
Java developers is over now.
Yeah, but I also think that like Clojure community is really nice and it's very warm and welcoming. It's a nice thing. But other communities are nice too. I mean, the Rust community is actually very nice. I've got to say. And for all the bullshit, the JavaScript community is really nice too.
It's very fun.
They're a fun bunch.
That is the thing. I mean, it's like there are people who are at the intersection of all these communities, right? So there are people who are working in one and then working in others. So the nice person is a nice person always, and it's not like just because I'm using Clojure, I'm an asshole. I mean, I'm an asshole always. So it doesn't matter just because I'm using Clojure. I'm an idiot. It doesn't matter. So it can be, I can be stupid in multiple language, so it's not
asshole in multiple communities.
Exactly, like a polyglot asshole. but the point is that
sorry, Kira,
because time and again in the Clojure surveys, if there is one thing that people are asking for, one thing is, it's not like of course I'm just speculating about who is spending their time on what, because there should be at least like a vision, right? It doesn't need to be like an inaction. They can just say, hey, we bless Clojurists together to take over some things, like core async has like 200 bugs, whatever, from 20 bugs that need to be fixed, and we can establish people who have been contributing to this, and then say, give them, the whole point of leadership is delegation, right? So succession and delegation and succession, which is the biggest challenges for any entity. So it would be nice to do something like that. Otherwise, we're just hanging in this limbo and competing people doing things, specs 2 versus Mully versus schema, and then something else and something else.
Totally.
Which is not fun for the people who are coming into the community. I mean, I've been in this for I've been on the sites for 10 years, so or 11 years. Even. So I know, so I got used to this, like I have like a tunnel vision now. I bought into the code, so I don't see any problems. But for the new folks, it's stressful.
I think the Stockholm syndrome is strong with this one. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Every day I just genuflect towards Rich's house, 3 times a day.
Yeah, I think the thing is, well, though, is that in the last sort of 10, 11 years, like the Clojure platform, the Clojure, like the complexity of Clojure itself, the facilities that Clojure offers has grown quite a lot. These reducers, transducers, the core async stuff, all of these things that you kind of weren't around at the beginning, and if you've been there for 10 years, you kind of like drip fed
gradually,
them, drip fed them like year by year by year. There's a new big thing every year or two, and it's just you can absorb it. But if you're just walking up to the platform now or the language now, it's like, holy shit, this is a lot. There's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, that's the thing. And there's no like sort of authoritative guide on getting started. And that's the thing. It's like every resource is different. And even at this point, like there's people who start and they're like, which build tool do I use? There's like Liningen, there's Steps, Eda now, which is supposed to be like the big like thing that
I think there is clarity around that one, Kira. I think the core team have made it clear that they want to use Steps.
That's their thing.
So that is good. I mean, I like that. That is like, okay, we are making a tool. This is what we use. If you don't use it, fair enough. But this is the supported thing, and I think that attitude if we could take that attitude towards documentation, I think we'd be winning. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Or
But
yeah, or
the,
like
the advantage
libraries,
now
like
is
you
that
said.
for the data people who are going to get started on that one, they don't have this problem anymore. Very
We'll
soon.
see. Yeah,
Very
we'll
soon.
see.
Very soon. Yeah.
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 So when are you due to
coming
kind of
soon.
like is it coming soon? Is it like next year or is it
Yeah, no, it is underway. Like I'm
is it like
working on it
Specs 2?
actively. So yeah, no, it's I'm just thinking about it. Just yeah. No, yeah, so I received the funding for this quarter, and so I am aiming best case scenario. So I am still like, it's still just like a part-time, not even part-time. It's like a
Of course.
hobby level thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm aiming to have like roughly a chapter per quarter done. So like by next summer-ish to be at least mostly through with it. And it'll, I hope, or I will see, I guess, but I'm hoping at some point like the community can contribute as well. So like
Yes, exactly.
I think
Yeah.
there have been efforts like this before. This is not the first attempt to make like a guide for Clojure data science.
Yeah.
But when I was talking to people who worked on it before about why it kind of fizzled, like one of the main reasons was there's just kind of like lack of like editorial consistency and lack of like a single person kind of like keeping it going. So like people contribute when they can, but then they run out of time or they lose interest. And like this way, hopefully, like I say hopefully as if like this is the goal. This is what my plan with this money is, to be that person who's like not going to let it die. Like it's now my actual responsibility to Clojure us together to deliver this project. So
you will be that autocratic leader.
Yeah. Lay down the rules for the
we got that.
We all know that world progressed or regressed, otherwise only because of this autocracy, right? Otherwise we stay the same, and it's always like every 5 years 5 step forwards, 5 step backwards because of all this stupid democracy.
No, let's say that let's say it's more inspired leadership, Kira, rather than autocracy.
Yeah, no, I certainly hope. Like, yeah, I would like for it to be like open, and it is. I mean, it's all like going to be open source, and it'll be a free resource and whatever. But
that's good.
Yeah, we'll see.
Clojure people are cool.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, the community's been great for sure. That's definitely one of my favorite parts of Clojure is the people, not just my coworkers, but also the broader community. Like it's just, there's some languages that are just hostile. Like you ask a question and it's just like it's scary almost. It's like, oh god, I'm gonna get called stupid. Oh, they're gonna think I'm dumb. Oh, like I have to make a fake profile. And like yeah, with Clojure, like I'm myself on Twitter, on Slack. Like I've gotten to know several people in the community just over the internet, and it's been great. And just on the community forums, there's always like people are pretty reasonable, and if they aren't, like other people chime in. Like it's it's a pretty functional community, which is really impressive, honestly. It's pretty rare in my experience.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just part of the function of it being a bit small, But,
yeah, that's really true. It definitely does
evolves.
feel. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it in the next few years. But yeah, it does feel like there's a handful of like, really prolific contributors, and like kind of everybody almost like knows them, and it's the same faces. You go through the podcast circuit or the conference circuit, and it's a lot of familiar faces.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, I'm getting sick of it.
Try to find some new.
I mean, I keep listening to this Defen podcast, this fucking Vijay guy. I mean, it's like fucking every episode.
It's such a whinge.
Keeps droning on and on and on about Emacs. Like, what the fuck? Stop it, man.
This keeps going.
Anyway,
can't get enough of this guy. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Can't stand him anymore.
But yeah, I think that's the thing. Like that like top down, because like the Alex Miller is one of the more public like members of the core team, and he just has like a really like friendly demeanor and like a really kind of like happy-go-lucky kind of vibe. And so I think that that like sets the tone for like the community, right? When it's like, here's the official communications and like the official style, and
But I must say, I think maybe it's a kind of a hot take or controversial opinion. In my opinion, I think Alex did way more to Clojure being more friendly and being more adopted, I think, than Rich, because Rich was, of course, all the ideas were from Rich. Obviously, Alex will give all the credit to Rich, but he did significant amount of work in terms of making it more like a community. Otherwise, it was a bit different. And
Interesting.
I read somewhere that Einstein wasn't able to explain his shit to the lay people that easily, so he had to. There is another
Right.
person who was able to explain this shit to to the people. So Alex is like that,
Interesting.
and then Rich is like doing all the hard work of hammocking, and then Alex was able to explain the stuff, like bringing
Interesting.
the commandments in normal language for people to understand. Like, what the fuck is he talking about?
That's
You know?
interesting. I guess, yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
been around like really long enough in the community, but yeah, obviously I've
yeah, yeah,
noticed
yeah.
like Alex Miller's obviously more public. I mean, Rich is like almost not
Yes.
public whatsoever, which is
Yeah, yeah,
totally
yeah, yeah,
fine. But I mean,
yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. He's obviously some sort of genius. Like his conference talks and his like way of thinking about programming is really
Yes.
unique and inspiring. But
Yeah, yeah.
like I do think that's really important for sure. Like you said, to have, and yeah, I think Alex deserves huge credit for that, for
Yeah.
being like um just like a friendly face for the kind of core team. Like I think that's really important
Yes.
to show people that it's approachable. And and Rich is like in his like most the only I've obviously never like there's very little like interaction with himself, and in some
Yeah,
of his
yeah.
talks and some of the videos that are out there, like he's a little salty, he's kind of like a crusty old guy, and it's like and that's fine, I get it. Like I'm only 30 and I'm like almost done with the world, but like you know it's
Now you
like
can imagine how he feels after writing C++ for so
exactly. Like
long.
I get it. I get being jaded and salty about the world, but like, I think it's
But I
important to
think that
also
one of the reasons, as you mentioned, is because the newer people haven't been there. Because I was there on the IRC when
right,
Rich was very active, back in the day before all the
right,
Slack, and so it was. I mean, because I was on IRC way long before, and I know how IRC communication is compared to that shit. This is complete. This is like
right.
welcoming warm hugs. Like
I'm
answering
super
answering things
curious.
because yeah.
I'm super
So
curious what
if
that
you
would
if
have
you
been
if you
like.
if you
I'm
go
not
back and
surprised.
all the Clojure IRC free node logs are there. You can read, you can see all the discussions, and it's a. I mean, that's also the reason why I'm there since, well, at least the beginning of the times, and uh, I don't know, 12 years now almost, 2009, I guess. So I'm still
Right,
sticking around because of the thinking behind Clojure, how Rich was communicating, answering questions, and helping people, and then slowly Alex taking the helm, and then making it a bigger community, and then we're doing
right.
our tiny part of whatever I could do, which is, well, I'm a mediocre developer, so I can't produce like
Sure.
fascinating code. So I can shit talk about other
Yeah,
languages and on
yeah.
everything. So
Yeah.
that's my contribution to Clojure and
Yeah, I
shitting
think I
around.
think the other
Sure,
just the
yeah.
sort of the new kid on the block as well, Mr. Forgus, shouldn't be
Yeah,
left out. I think he's quite a
yeah, yeah,
friendly
yeah.
fellow
Course,
as well.
yeah, of course.
He's
Yes.
setting a good tone. It'd be interesting to see what he's
Yeah,
coming up
for
with in
sure.
the next few years, because obviously you know, he's in the core team now,
Yeah,
so there
yeah,
must
yeah.
be
Right,
doing
right.
bits and pieces.
Mm.
And there's a conj next year, so it'll be interesting to see,
Yeah,
what
Oh,
they're
that's
going to be
exciting.
talking about there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it should be good.
I heard April
Listen,
Yeah.
27th and 28th.
I think we've taken
Okay,
so much
cool.
of your time now, Kira.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like
Fuck.
it's like
No,
so
not at
long,
all. It's
but it's
happy to
I
be
w-
here.
yeah. No, I wanted to sort of change gears a little bit and just I noticed in the background there you've got a couple of mats, and I noticed that you're like trying to do closure-based yoga. is that,
Yeah,
is that
so yeah,
correct? Yeah.
that's my other thing. Yeah, I'm also a yoga teacher in my my off time or whatever. My day job is still software development because unfortunately yoga does not pay the bills, but I'm working on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's my other. It started as like just like a personal interest thing, but then this past year I started teaching as well. So yeah, right now I
Ooh,
do
nice.
some online courses and a couple working on getting a couple small things. I just moved to a new province, so starting to try to set up some kind of public classes around here. But
All right.
Ooh,
Okay.
nice.
So
yeah,
you're
it's
doing it
a
in
pretty big
person as
part of.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, in the past, so in my previous town, so I moved here. I guess it's been a couple months now. I say I just moved, but we got here like early September, so it's been like over 2 months. But
Mm.
Hmm.
yeah, I was teaching sort of last summer and into the fall, and now it's process like trying to get to know the right people to find the right space and whatever to rent. But
Mm.
yeah, in the
Nice.
meantime, I was like, yeah,
But
I'm never gonna figure this out. I'll just teach online too. So yeah, that's
but you're doing it online as well, right? I've been meaning to join one of the things because I'm on like I think today's my 98th day of yoga. Yeah. I
oh,
mean,
that's
I'm trying to keep a
awesome.
discipline. I want to reach 100 at some
Nice.
point. I mean, I've been
There you
doing
go.
on
Well, a
and off. I
couple
mean,
more days.
being Indian, like we it's kind of like
That's true.
it's a thing for us, sitting cross-legged and
Right, right. Yeah, no, I know.
but
That's part of the
I'll
problem.
get
It's
there.
just like it's weird it's kind of weird because like so in like software, like I'm almost always the only woman in the room, and it's like I'm very like stand out and like
Mm.
kind of this
Mm.
like weird like anomaly in any group. But like in the world of yoga, like it's just like so cliche. Like 99% of teachers are like
You
skinny
know
white
what? That is
girls,
the
and
thing
it's
that
like,
scares me to go to yoga studios. That's why I
yeah,
just
well,
do
I
it at
get it.
home. It's like fucking
I get it.
everywhere is just
It's
women. I'm like, I don't want to be there. And then suddenly
It's
I'm the
yeah.
guy.
The Me
And
Too moment of yoga.
exactly. I don't know what the fuck. I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I went to this sewing classes these days. I mean, like 6 of
Oh,
them, and
nice.
I'm the only guy.
I bet. I'm
Everyone
not
else is
surprised.
female or non-male, whatever. Like
Yeah.
I feel so like, is this okay? Is this okay for them? Is this okay for me? I'm confused.
That's
Like, god damn
hilarious.
it, this is so
Imagine
stressful.
feeling like that at work every day for a decade, right?
Exactly.
It's like,
Yes. Yes. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not comparing because nobody is
Well,
doing
yeah.
shit like people do for women anyway. To me, and nobody is
No,
groping
but
or,
it's
or
similar
being
experience.
stupid. And yeah, but I
I know
can
what you
imagine
mean.
like
It's a weird feeling being like,
probably
oh
probably
boy, like
like
what's going
20
on
times
here?
what you probably feeling.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like that's
Yeah,
why
like,
I
oh,
don't
I
want to
didn't.
go to yoga studios because everybody
Sure.
I'm just the only guy and
It
I
is
don't want to
awkward. I
stand
totally
out.
get that.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
It
it
is strange.
is.
But anyway,
It's
I'm doing it at
weird.
home and that's okay. And yoga is
But
like,
that's awesome. Yeah, you can
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
totally have a home practice. I do most of my practice at
Exactly.
home now too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
go like back and forth between
Yeah.
studios and home. It depends, but yeah, but no, it's a
But
big part of my life for sure. I quite enjoy it.
Is there a
nice.
Yeah.
particular style of yoga, or is it like I know they have these like
A few,
hot yoga studios and stuff like that, you
right.
know?
Yeah, unfortunately there's no hot yoga studio where I live now. I moved to a pretty small town, but I used to do hot yoga all the time. I love it.
Oh,
But yeah, what I teach is mostly like the pretty classical, like they call it vinyasa yoga. So it's like a
yeah, yeah.
flowy, like
Flow.
kind
Yeah.
of like
Mm.
workout base with a little
Yeah.
bit of breathing and
Okay.
meditation stuff. I sometimes do yin yoga, which is like a much slower kind of static stretching style
Hmm.
a little bit. So it's more like get into a pose and hold it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And then you might
Right.
only
Okay.
do like
Yeah.
6 poses in a class or something.
Mm. Mm.
It's
And
it's
there's
really fun to hear all this Western interpretation of yoga because if you come
right,
from the
yeah.
traditional Indian thing, there is just only one thing. That's it, and there is
There's
not
just
much of.
yoga.
And there is like
Yeah.
Ashtanga and Vinyasa, and then hot yoga and Yin yoga and Iyengar
There's
yoga,
yin
Vikram yoga.
yoga and
I'm like, what the fuck is this?
yoga
I'm super
nidra.
confused.
What are all these?
Yeah, yeah,
That is funny. I'm always very curious, yeah, how it comes off, right? So like you said, like someone who
yeah,
grew
yeah.
up where yoga is just more like in the
Yeah, it was
culture,
like
it's not
daily thing
really.
for us in the
Yeah,
schools
it's
at
not
home. It's like a
this like obscure workout thing. It's
no,
like
no, no.
just a way of life. And then yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how does it feel to just be like, oh my God, there's all these like skinny white girls on Instagram like doing handstands or whatever.
I don't
Like what like
I don't do shit on Instagram, so I probably don't know. My
like
guess is they're
yeah.
probably selling something else than yoga. So like,
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So I know it's definitely it makes me very self-conscious for sure. Like it's yeah, like I was lucky like the you know, whatever, some of the teachers I've had have been big on the like philosophy side and all the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
spiritual stuff. But like it is
yeah,
weird because right, because it's you don't want to be insensitive about it. Like it does come from this like ancient like wisdom tradition, and then
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
become this kind of form of weird acrobatics almost. And it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
it's
it was always meant to be like before you go into meditative state, you just do some physical stuff.
right,
That was the whole idea. It was
right,
never
right,
something that is standing on its own.
right.
It's part of the
Yeah.
bigger. I mean, Ashtanga is not just yoga, but there are
It's
seven other
part of the
things that
path
you
to
need to.
enlightenment, man.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the
Yeah.
yoga that you're doing is just one of the 8. Not anyway. Fuck it.
Exactly. Yeah. We talked about that, like the
I don't want to go
eight-limbed
into different
path,
direction.
and
Yeah.
we can have a little lesson in yoga philosophy, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I started out trying to have separate profiles. So like I had, and I do have like a separate like Instagram or whatever, but on Twitter, I was doing like yoga with Kira, and then like my personal Twitter, which is more like programming stuff and leftist politics, as you noticed. But then I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm drowning in social media accounts here. And so I just ended up like, now I share it all to the same
and then
place,
you suddenly post a Clojure snippet to your yoga account, and everybody's like, what the fuck, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
And then you post yoga stuff. And
I get that it's confusing for sure. And it's a little bit, but most of the students I've had online have been from either like the Clojure community or like my other various like professional communities. So it is interesting. There's a little bit of overlap there, but
I mean, it's nice that online you're also a multi-dimensional person. You're not just one, stream of consciousness.
I guess like
Clojure snippets, If you see Ray's Twitter account, you know what I mean.
Right. That's what
that's that I'm as random as hell.
Yeah.
Anyway,
decided.
Yeah. I think we'll certainly post the link to the thing. I know that you have a link to the online classes that you're doing like regularly. So
sure, yeah.
I'll put that
right
one
now,
into the thing.
I'm running a couple of weeks, but the schedule is on my website, and I'm thinking about maybe starting up like I say morning club, but I'm not a morning person. So by morning, I mean like 9 or 10 a.m., but like a morning class.
I think for your morning is going to be evening for European people.
That's it. Yeah. A lot of people are in like Europe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or a midnight yoga if you're in India, if I haven't offended all the Indians listening.
Right.
But anyway, on that enlightened note, I think
yes.
Thanks a lot for joining, Kira. I think it's been a pleasure, and I think it's the perfect episode for us to come back to. So it's been too long, and it's such a fresh breath of air, and the new generation coming into Clojure, and looking stuff into a different perspective rather than grumpy old morons, coming in and then saying, oh, we know how to do this shit. But it's awesome, and looking forward to your project on the data stuff and
so
more
much.
Awesome stuff that you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, despite that God is not real, you're doing God's work,
Yeah. No,
Cool.
thanks for having me, and excited to see where it all takes me also.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see you
watch
around
with interest.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, so, hopefully keep in touch.
Yep.
Definitely.
So that's it from us for episode 86, and hopefully the next episode is not going to be as what do you call that, like the distance between this episode and the next episode is hopefully going to be less than the previous one. So that's
do the maths,
people
hope. Do the maths. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you're all smarter, way smarter than I am, and I was trying to sound smart, but fuck it. Thanks for listening, and go check out Kira's website, and also follow her on Twitter everywhere. We'll post the links. And we are looking forward to coming up with the next episode. Thank you. Thanks again, Kira.
Thank you. Also, there might be a little Easter egg at the end of this episode where my son was playing the piano and our dog started singing along. So we might put a little Easter egg of my dog singing along to my son playing the piano at the end of this.
Amazing. Oh, I can't wait.
It's like one of those seizure warnings before superhero movies. So be ready.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'll send it to you on the private messages. Oh,
wonderful.
God. Yeah,
wonderful.
It's hilarious.
Anyway, cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DefN. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page, and you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me, for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at DefN Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.